Welcome into Boxing Scene Today here at the ProBox TV studios. Well, a couple of big fight announcements. One is not a surprise at all. One, a gigantic surprise, at least to me, but let's see what the experts say. Jimmy Smith alongside the champs. As always, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie joining us in studio. Chris joining us via Zoom. Well, do you guys want to start with the tough one or the easy one? Let's get the easy one out of the way. The rematch we all expected, of course, Chris Eubank Jr., of course, taking on Conor Benn. Rematch apparently set now for mid-November, according to The Ring. Guys, no real surprises here, Paulie. As you said, and you brought this up, they're the two guys that can fight one another, have a competitive fight that people are interested in. Kind of a no-brainer. Are you surprised when it's happening, how fast it was to put together? Any surprises to you about this?
No, I expected this rematch to get made. I assume they figured out the weight. Is that what they're...
That might be the issue. Nothing announced right now.
Because that was gonna be the sticking point, right? Was the weight, because Eubank struggled a lot to make 160 last time. Now with having won the first fight, does he have negotiating wiggle room to push it a little further up? I don't know. I'm not surprised this fight got made. There's way too much money, and it was way too good of a good fight in the first time around for it not to happen again. November is shaping up to be pretty good for Riyadh season because we have the week after, I think, is Norman and Haney. So if it's mid-November, which I guess is around the 15th. That's
it's exactly when this is scheduled.
Yeah, so shaping up to be a pretty blockbuster-ish month of fights.
What I'm curious about, Chris, when you have a rematch, you got to sell me that the loser is going to do something they didn't do in the first fight. Once again, very entertaining fight, but what can the loser in this case do to make me, once again, throw down my money for this fight other than a repeat of the first one?
I don't even if it is a repeat, I think people are going to tune in. I don't think people are really going to care. The fight was really good, but there are adjustments that can be made. I think there's actually more adjustments that can be made for Eubank than for Benn. Benn is a real intensity type guy. He's come forward. He's explosive. He tries to hit you with big shots. I'd be surprised if he came out there and tried to jab with Eubank, although I think that's probably a good idea because Eubank, he's got a long jab. Whenever he did get that jab going, he really was able to nullify Benn because Benn doesn't have that awareness, that ability to get with the jab going when someone's jabbing at them. But Eubank even said after the fight he was very surprised at how good Benn was, how strong he was, how explosive he was. So I think having that knowledge right there is going to make a difference for Eubank, for him to make adjustments where he's been like, all right, I can't underestimate this guy again. I got through it the first time. I was able to win the fight convincingly as well. He's like, now I understand this guy's going to come with full force. I know what to expect a little bit more. I know that he's dangerous, and he can be a little tighter on his P's and his Q's when it comes to that jabbing. But, Paulie, when it comes to the weight, I don't think that's the issue holding this thing up because from what I understand, the original contract for the first fight already had details for the second fight, and everything was signed upon about that. It doesn't matter if who won or lost. The weight's the weight. The stipulations that were in the first fight are continuing on into the second fight. Maybe there was some pushback on that, and there was a renegotiation, but if not, they're going to go with the original plan, and they're going to fight once again with the same stipulations as the first fight, in which case it's 160, plus there's going to be a plus 10-pound rehydration clause, which I hate those things. I think they're super, super dangerous, which could affect the fight. I think it did greatly affect the first fight, and it could affect this fight again. And actually, I was kind of concerned that this fight was not going to happen because of the implosion of the September date, that maybe Eubank was going to, didn't want to whittle himself down to the weight again, was going to try and move up and wait for the Canelo fight. And then also Benn, based on watching Manny Pacquiao fight Mario Barrios to a draw, that there could have been an opportunity for him to get back down to 147 and to fight for a title if this fight fell through. So I thought both of those things actually endangered this fight actually happening. But now we're here once again, and I think it's actually the best move for everybody.
Speaking of fights that have implications, maybe possible disaster, but much more difficult to analyze, Artur Beterbiev taking on Deon Nicholson. That is November 22nd in Riyadh. Paulie, we all knew about the rubber match with Bivol that we knew was going to happen. This is a very dangerous, stay busy kind of fight, especially at 41, 42 years old. It's very, very difficult. What's your thought on it?
I think it's you know, confidence builder, maybe see if Beterbiev. It's probably not even a confidence builder at this point because Beterbiev doesn't really need confidence builders, but it's probably one of those. We'll put you in against a guy of this level and to see if you still want it, if you still want to deal with it, how your body reacts to training camp at this age, how hungry you fight. You know, it's not. I don't think it's a fight that's a risk for Beterbiev. You know, there were riskier fights on the discussion that, you know, maybe would have been a step down, but still were riskier fights. You know, I know I had heard our own Najee Lopez was also in the conversation for that fight, but instead they went with Nicholson. So I don't really think they're trying to take too many chances in this fight. No disrespect to Nicholson, but he doesn't really fit the bill of somebody that Beterbiev has been up against in recent years. So I think it's more so not a question of whether Beterbiev wins. I think it's more so they're looking to see how hungry Beterbiev looks or you know, how many steps he's lost. He was still neck and neck with Bivol's last fight. So I don't know if there's any question there, but maybe, you know, you fall out of shape, you go after the training camp, you fight, and now you got to get back in shape. And who knows if at this age maybe the desire is not there. So I'm thinking this is just one of those fights where I think they're trying to see if his desire is there and how his mental outlook is for the fight, because he's always been a hyper-focused guy. So if he doesn't have that in this fight, they say, okay, let's call it a retirement. Or if he just blows right through him the way you would expect Beterbiev to do, the way we've expected him to do against guys of this level, then it's like, okay, now you have some options. Do you know, maybe take on Benavidez after the Yard fight or something like that?
Yeah, but this idea, Chris, that I'm trying to figure out as an outsider in the boxing world is you already have the rubber match essentially ready to go. If he isn't hungry or he doesn't have desire, we're going to fight out against Bivol, and it's a huge payday. This idea of, well, let's have this fight in the middle and figure out, as Paulie says, where he is mentally. Do you want to take a risk against an opponent like this? Because the platform in Saudi Arabia is going to be very, very big. Chris, what's your thought on it?
Yeah, so my thought here is I've got a couple ideas because, Champ, what you said, I agree. Excuse me, I agree. I don't think this is a dangerous fight. I think it is a keep busy fight, and I think that's really what it is. At the age of 41 years old, I think keeping him sharp, keeping him active is a good thing. And in terms of does he still have it? Does he still want it? I don't think that's going to be in question with Beterbiev. I've been around his team. I've been around him. The guy is like a monk. That's the way he lives. That's the way he trains. He's hyper religious. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He just trains. He trains no matter what, whether he's got a fight or he doesn't. So the desire will be there. I think this is more his team making an executive decision to keep him active, make sure he can get through camps healthful in a healthful way, because he is 41 years old. Unless he falls off a cliff because of his age and father time comes overnight, I think he cuts through this guy like a warm knife through butter. I don't expect this to be a difficult fight. The guy has been stopped already at much, much lower levels. So unless Beterbiev fell off a cliff, I think this is going to be a destruction, and they're going to move on and look for said rubber match, like you said, Jimmy. Again, this to me smells like the team was like, hey, listen, these negotiations are taking too long for the rubber match. Let's keep our man busy with a fight that's relatively easy. Then he's going to come out unscathed, and we can move on to the bigger and better things if that fight materializes, and if not, someone else that's big at 175. But I don't think this is going to be a very difficult fight whatsoever.
He is 41 next January. When you talk about Father Time's right here. It's right on his shoulder. You say, well, unless it comes right now. It can right now. You just 100%. Never know at this point. Chris, is that really what we're testing here? And if you are, betting on the upset, is that what you're betting on? That Father Time just gets him in this fight?
I'm looking at this more like, can his body make it through another camp? I know he trains very hard. I know I have trained with sparring partners in my gym down here that have been in camp with him. He's brutal. He brutalizes his sparring partners. He boxes very, very hard in sparring, almost like a fight. So I think they're really testing the mechanics, the wheels, the engine, to see if all that can get through a training camp to get him into a big fight. Because at this stage, this is when those injuries start to keep you from fighting and may even end your career. It's what happened to me. It's what happened to the Klitschko brothers. I wanted to keep fighting. My body was not willing. So I think they're going to test this out to see if he can get through a camp, get to a fight night, get in there and actually perform. But in terms of what's going to happen once that bell rings, I think Beterbiev is just going to be Beterbiev. That guy's a machine.
But Paulie, so to Chris's point, when you look at this fight, we've seen other fighters from the former Soviet bloc, right, who might have a multi-million-dollar payday ahead of them, Lomachenko, and in the middle of camp go, you know what? I'm not feeling it. I don't want to do this anymore. And check out in a way a Western fighter would take the payday, even if they're going in with a bunch of injuries, even if they're not really feeling it, they'll go in for the payday. Is there a risk, if you're a Beterbiev fan at this point, Paulie, that he'll halfway through camp go, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is. Even Klitschko did that, right?
Exactly.
Like the champ just mentioned. Yeah. So I think with these guys, it's a cultural thing. There are things that are worth more than money. I know to Westerners, that's something they can't even fathom.
But I don't get what you're saying, Paul. Yeah. I don't.
but
I'm sorry.
These guys in the East, they're very principled. So he wouldn't be the first Eastern guy to say halfway through a camp, "I'm done. I'm retired." It's not there anymore. We expect them to take it adequately through camp, knowing that this fight's not tough, and maybe push him in a calculated way to see just how his body responds. This is probably the main reason, like Champ said, also keep him busy, keep him in the gym so his body stays active, because you don't want to get your body cold at this age, because like you said, man, Father Time's there. He's actually taking selfies with Father Time. He's
right behind him.
He's in cahoots with him. He's so far he's been able to live with him.
Right.
But at a certain point, Father Time eventually kicks you in your ass, right? So I think they're testing it out and whatnot, and not a risk fight. Like I said, there were a little bit riskier fights there. Like I said, there was Najee. Yeah. The Najee fight was on the table, which again, I think Beterbiev would have been favored because Najee hasn't been at that level. But Najee is a very good prospect who's explosive and dangerous, and I think it would have tested him a little bit more. So Nicholson, I'm not sure you have a hungry guy like you would have had with Lopez. Not to mention, I don't think Nicholson's even on the level of Lopez. So the fact that you've gone this many levels below in order to keep Beterbiev busy, there's a lot of strategizing here. We'll see.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Father Time. Dmitry Bivol, 34. That is not a spring chicken at his weight class with the number of fights he's been through with the amateur background. Chris, if I'm in Bivol's camp and I'm one of his handlers and I'm one of his trainers, keep him busy, make the same decision, wait for the rubber match, which is big money, see how Beterbiev looks against Nicholson. He's kind of on the outside looking in, playing the waiting game. How would you handle that?
Yeah, I don't know why the rubber match wasn't made, and why there hasn't been any headway with Bivol moving forward. That Benavidez fight was looming. That seemed like it was going to get a little bit of traction. I love that fight. I actually prefer that one than fighting the rubber match with Beterbiev. But I hate when this happens, when guys get a big win and then they stagnate. You got to strike with the irons hot. You mentioned 34. It's no spring chicken. A little better for the 175 pounder. Also a little better for a guy like Bivol, who does not and has not taken a lot of damage in his career. But he did have two brutal fights with Beterbiev. Spending 24 rounds with that man, you could take a little bit of rest. But once again, the older guy, Beterbiev, is the one who's coming back sooner. I don't like the idea that there's no discussions right now for Bivol and what's coming next for him. Are you just waiting around for Beterbiev? Because that doesn't seem like a good idea. That doesn't seem like what's going to happen, because Beterbiev's going to get a fight under his belt. He's going to get through a camp. He also could get hurt in camp. He also could, get cut during the fight, and that pushes the timeline back even more. Now Bivol's out for a year plus. Does he take a fight in the interim? I think he should. Or does he look in another direction? That's very possible too. Does he look for one of these other big names at 175? Because once again, I'm not super sold on seeing Beterbiev and Bivol tangle each other again. I think it's going to be very close to what the second fight looked like. I thought Bivol won the first fight. He clearly won the second fight. I think he might even win the third fight, possibly even easier and even wider at this point. So it's a fight that doesn't really interest me. I root for Beterbiev because of the payday. I appreciate him as a champion, and he's seems like a really, really cool, nice person. And it's a good way to go out. But otherwise, there's other fights at 175 I'd rather see both of these guys in, to be absolutely honest.
So leads right into my next question. I was going to ask you, Paulie, how evergreen is the rubber match? Trilogies tend to be pretty evergreen. Guys can take their L's in between. We still want to see the three of them tangle, because first two fights, to your point, Chris, were so competitive and so good. Paulie, how evergreen is this trilogy? I know we're dealing with one guy who's north of 40.
I mean, like you said, that they typically remain evergreen. Now, does that mean they live up to them? I mean, if you sort of let the expiration date pass and still do it, you make a jerk off out of the fans, but the fans like being.
Yeah,
made.
what else? What else? This is boxing.
But in boxing, fans love being made jerk offs out of them. They bought into the Canelo Golovkin 3 fight, and that was you talk about evergreen. They waited the shit out of that third
but
fight.
It's
Paulie,
sold.
that was ever gray.
Yeah,
that was ever gray.
And so
I remember Hearns Leonard. Okay, so
Hearns and Leonard, which actually ended up being a good fight. Unlike Canelo Golovkin 3.
Right.
But there's an age situation here with Beterbiev. So you can milk it and still do it, and like I said, make a jerk off out of everybody, or you do it the right way and just make it quickly, and then at least there's listen, if Beterbiev is old in the third fight, he's old in the third fight, but we knew we were getting to because the first two were competitive and it was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick turnaround. Once you purposely make the turnaround later, make it get later. And like I said, you're making a mockery out of the fan base.
All right. So what I'm curious about, Chris, as an extension of the question I just asked you, Bivol is champion. Beterbiev, for the first time in 8 years, is fighting without a belt on the line. He can, to Paulie's words, go down a couple levels. We can see where he is. Bivol is champion. He can only step down so far and defend his titles, the level at which he's been fighting. Paulie, I know you're going to say it. No. How far can he step down? That's what I'm curious.
I mean, you can take a stay busy fight with a respectable opponent. Champ, what do you think of like Alexander Vazdik? Yeah. He put a pretty good fight against Benavidez, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a decent.
So where do you go if you're Bivol? That was my question. Is he can go down, but I don't think he can go as down
too far down. But like a Vazdik, I mean, you're not going to Nicholson because Bivol's champion. You can't just defend against.
That's exactly
unless your
what
name's
I meant.
Canelo, you can't just defend against Uber drivers defending world title fights. So I think Bivol can go down a level, but a guy like a Vazdik is a solid opponent. It doesn't even have to be Vazdik, but somebody of that level. I think.
Well, you got to think about that weight class, Paulie. That weight class, the top 5 is very deep. And
I would have said Yard, but Benavidez is fighting Yard.
So I was going to mention guys like Callum Smith, Anthony Yard. Those are all very. Well,
Callum's fighting
guys.
somebody. Who's Callum fighting now? Who's Callum fighting?
Callum is
he's got a fight signed. But Vazdik, was, he gave a good account of himself against Benavidez. I could see Bivol and Vazdik, Russia versus Ukraine fight again, the way it was with Vazdik and Beterbiev. That's.
I think Callum Smith and Morrell are fighting.
Yes.
Callum Smith, Morrell,
which is
another guy
nice
who
name.
would be deserving. I mean, the issue at the moment, and as we're talking about this, it's uncovering itself, is that everyone has dance partners. And except for Beterbiev and Bivol. But it seems like the Bivol squad is trying to move away from that fight. I don't know if we see that rubber match, guys. It just seems like if there's no other dance partners available except for that one, which is a huge money fight, and you have the advantage anyway, and you still don't take it, I don't think you want that fight anymore. I think it looks like Beterbiev is moving on. That Bivol is moving on to greener pastures.
Bivol versus Vazdik. I like it.
You heard it.
I like it. Matchmaker Paulie Malignaggi, once again.
Paulie, you got a great career as a matchmaker when this is all said and done. That's why we bring in the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi. I'm Jimmy Smith. If we do get that rubber match, and it does make news, you'll know about it right here on Boxing Scene Today. Join us. Find out why millions are watching.